I'm Valerie Hayes. I'm 56 years old, and on my daughter's 28th birthday, she looked me dead in the eye and called my gift cheap, filthy trash. Then she threw it back at my face, in front of her friends. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I just pulled my investment, stopped the mortgage payment on her house, and said one thing: from now on, you're on your own. If you've ever been disrespected by your own child, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from, because what happened next still breaks my heart. Even now, months later, when I close my eyes at night, I can still feel that velvet box hitting my cheek. I can still hear the laughter. I can still see her face, my baby girl, twisted into something I didn't recognize. Something cruel. Something entitled. Something I apparently created. Let me tell you who I am, because context matters. I'm not some distant parent who threw money at problems and called it love. I'm not someone who was absent and trying to buy forgiveness. I was there. I was always there. I raised my daughter alone after her father passed when she was only 7 years old. 7. Do you know what it's like to explain death to a 7-year-old? Do you know what it's like to watch your baby girl sob into her pillow every night for months, calling for a daddy who's never coming back? I do. I lived it. And I promised myself, promised her father's memory, that she would never want for anything. That I would be both mother and father. That I would give her the world if I had to tear it apart with my bare hands to do it. So that's what I did. I worked 2 jobs, 2 full-time jobs, for years. During the day, I was an administrative assistant at a law firm, answering phones, scheduling meetings, typing until my fingers cramped. At night, I waitressed at an upscale restaurant downtown, smiling through exhaustion, carrying heavy trays, being pleasant to demanding customers who sometimes treated me like I was invisible. My feet ached constantly. My back hurts. I lived on 4 hours of sleep and coffee that tasted like regret. But I did it. I did it because that's what mothers do. That's what love looks like when it's real. It's a sacrifice. It's bleeding yourself dry so your child can bloom. And somewhere in those brutal years, I started dreaming. I started saving. I started planning. I took every event planning course I could find online, stayed up late into the night learning about logistics and vendors and contracts. I had always been good at organizing, coordinating school fundraisers, planning family gatherings, making magic happen on a shoestring budget. So I decided to turn that skill into something more. I launched my own event planning business from scratch. From nothing. Just me, a laptop, and a desperate hope that I could build something better for us. It was terrifying. Starting a business in your 40s with no safety net, no partner, no backup plan? That's not brave. That's insane. But I was insane with love for my daughter. I wanted her to see that you could build yourself up from nothing. That you could take the broken pieces of your life and create something beautiful. That tragedy doesn't have to be the end of your story. And it worked. Slowly, painfully, it worked. My business grew. I started with small events, birthday parties, baby showers, anniversary dinners. Then bigger ones, corporate events, charity galas, weddings. I built a reputation. I built a client list. I built a life that finally felt stable. Secure. Successful. And every dollar I made, every single dollar, I poured into my daughter's future. When she wanted to go to college, I didn't hesitate. I paid her tuition, all of it. State school wasn't good enough, she said. She wanted a private university, a prestigious name, and networking opportunities. So I gave it to her. $48,000 a year for 4 years. I did the math recently. That's over $190,000. Not including her apartment, her meal plan, her textbooks, her spring break trips, her sorority dues. I told myself it was an investment. That education was priceless. That she would use this foundation to build something extraordinary. And when she graduated and wanted a car, I bought her one. Not a used Honda. Not something practical and sensible. She wanted a luxury SUV, white with tan leather interior, all the bells and whistles. Mom, everyone I network with drives nice cars. I need to look successful to be successful. That's what she told me. So I wrote the check. $37,000. I remember signing it and feeling this little twist in my stomach, this tiny voice whispering that maybe this was too much, maybe she needed to work for some things herself. But I silenced that voice. I told myself I was giving her opportunities one never had. I told myself that's what good mothers do. Then came the MBA. She decided 2 years after undergrad that she needed an advanced degree. Not for any specific career goal, really. Just because everyone in my circle has one, Mom. So back to school she went, and back to funding her dreams I went. Another $80,000 over 2 years. I refinanced my house to cover part of it. My house. The house I'd finally paid off after 23 years of monthly payments. I put it back into debt for her education. And I didn't tell her that. I didn't want her to feel guilty. I wanted her to focus on her studies, to thrive, to become everything she was capable of becoming. When she got engaged at 25, I was thrilled. Her fiancé seemed nice enough, came from money, worked in finance, confident bordering on arrogant but successful. The wedding planning started immediately, and it was extravagant. She wanted the fairy tale. The destination venue, the designer dress, the celebrity florist, the live band, the premium open bar. The budget kept climbing, $50,000, $70,000, $90,000. Her fiancé's family was supposed to cover half, that was the agreement. Traditional, she said. His family pays for some things, we pay for others. But 3 weeks before the wedding, she came to me in tears. His family's funds got delayed. Some investment thing, some timing issue, some excuse I didn't fully understand and honestly didn't believe. They couldn't access the money in time. The wedding was going to be cancelled unless someone covered their portion. She was devastated. This was her dream day, she sobbed. She'd been planning it for over a year. All her friends were coming. The deposits were non-refundable. What were they supposed to do? So I covered it. All of it. I paid for the venue that was supposed to be on his family's dime. I paid for the catering upgrade, the extra floral arrangements, the videographer they'd cut from the budget. I emptied my business savings account. Every penny I'd been setting aside for retirement, for emergencies, for my own future, gone. $72,000 in one check. And you know what his family did when those delayed funds finally became available 3 months after the wedding? Absolutely nothing. They never reimbursed me. They never even acknowledged it. And my daughter never pushed them to. She just thanked me sweetly and moved on with her married life, posting photos of her honeymoon in Bali that somehow they could afford. But I wasn't done being useful yet. A year into her marriage, she came to me with a business idea. She wanted to start an online boutique, curated fashion, accessories, lifestyle products for the modern professional woman. She had the vision, the eye, the social media following. What she didn't have was capital. She needed inventory, a website, marketing, shipping infrastructure, business licensing. She put together a pitch for me like I was a venture capitalist, complete with projected revenues and growth charts. And I invested. Of course I did. $45,000 from what was left of my savings. I told myself this was different. This was actually smart. This was helping her build something of her own, teaching her entrepreneurship, giving her independence. This wasn't just spending money on her, this was investing in her future, in her dreams, in her potential. She promised to pay me back once the business became profitable. She promised this was going to be huge. She promised I'd see returns on this investment within 2 years. The boutique did okay. Not huge, not terrible. It made money, but somehow never enough to pay me back. There were always expenses. More inventory needed. A better website platform. Influencer marketing costs. Shipping price increases. A larger storage space. More advertising. It was always something. And I understood, I really did. I know businesses take time to become profitable. I built my own from nothing. I understood cash flow issues and reinvestment strategies. So I waited. I was patient. I didn't pressure her. I just kept supporting her in other ways. Like when she and her husband wanted to buy their first house. She was 26. The market was competitive, prices were insane, and their debt-to-income ratio was problematic because of her boutique's irregular income. They couldn't qualify for the mortgage they needed on their own. The house was perfect, she said. Their dream starter home. Hardwood floors, updated kitchen, big backyard for the kids they were planning to have. They'd lose it if they couldn't close quickly. So I co-signed. I put my name, my credit, my financial security on the line for their mortgage. And I didn't just co-sign, I agreed to pay half the monthly payment. $2,200 a month, every month, automatically withdrawn from my business account. Because she explained that they were stretched thin with his student loans and her business expenses. Just until things stabilized, she promised. Just for the first year or two until they got on their feet. Just until the boutique really took off. Just until his next promotion came through. That was 2 years ago. I was still paying half their mortgage when she turned 28. I was still covering her car insurance. I was still paying for her phone plan, which she'd never bothered to switch to her own name. I was still listed as the guarantor on her boutique's commercial lease, which meant when her rent was late, they called me. And it was late more often than not in those last few months, so I'd taken to just paying it directly to avoid the late fees and the damage to her credit, and mine, since I'd co-signed that too. I was exhausted. Financially, yes, but more than that, emotionally exhausted. Spiritually exhausted. I was 56 years old, and I'd been in survival mode for nearly 3 decades. I'd been supporting, funding, enabling, sacrificing, giving, and giving, and giving until I wasn't sure what was left of me. My retirement account was anemic. My savings were gone. My business was profitable, thank God, but every dollar I made seemed to flow right through me and into her life. I was working just as hard as I had when she was a child, but now she was an adult. A married adult with a business and a house. And somehow I was still carrying her. But I never said anything. I never complained. Because she was my daughter. Because I loved her more than my own life. Because watching her thrive felt like my purpose. Because I genuinely believed that all of this sacrifice meant something. That she knew what I'd done for her. That she understood the depth of my love. That she appreciated it, even if she didn't say it often. That when it mattered, she would remember. She would honor it. She would treat me with the respect and gratitude that all this sacrifice deserved. I was wrong. Her 28th birthday fell on a Saturday in June. She'd been planning this dinner for weeks, an upscale restaurant downtown, the kind with soft lighting and seasonal menus and wine pairings that cost more than most people's grocery budget. She invited a dozen friends, her husband, his brother, and a few colleagues. It was a whole production. She'd gotten her hair and makeup professionally done. She wore a designer dress I'd never seen before that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. I arrived with my gift carefully wrapped in ivory paper with a sage green velvet ribbon. Inside was a custom bracelet I'd had made by a local jeweler I knew through my event planning work. It was rose gold, delicate but substantial, with a small charm engraved with coordinates. Those coordinates were the exact location of our first home, the tiny two-bedroom apartment where I'd brought her home from the hospital, where she'd taken her first steps, where we'd lived when her father was still alive. Where we'd been a complete family, just for a little while. Before everything fell apart. Before I had to become everything. I'd also engraved the date of her father's death on the inside of the band, where only she would see it. A private reminder that he was still with us. That his love hadn't died with him. That the family he'd started was still here, still standing, still loving each other through everything. I thought it was meaningful. I thought it was the kind of gift you keep forever, pass down to your own daughter someday, treasure as a connection to your history. I was so stupid. The dinner was already in full swing when I arrived, everyone was seated, drinks were flowing, appetizers were being passed around. She was holding Cord at the head of the table, laughing loudly at something someone had said, her hand resting possessively on her husband's arm. She looked happy. Radiant. Like her life was perfect. I made my way to her, leaning down to kiss her cheek. She turned her face at the last second so I got mostly hair and perfume. "Hi, Mom," she said, barely glancing at me. "There's a seat down at the end." The end of the table. As far from the birthday girl as possible. Next to someone's boyfriend I'd never met and didn't speak to me all night. But I smiled and I sat down and I ordered the cheapest thing on the menu because I knew I'd be paying for part of this somehow. Gifts were opened between courses. Designer handbags, expensive jewelry, weekend getaway vouchers, gift cards to luxury stores. Each gift was greeted with squeals and hugs and photos for Instagram. The pile of wrapping paper grew. The champagne kept flowing. When it was my turn, I carried my small box to her end of the table. Everyone was watching. She took it from me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, that performative smile you give someone when there are cameras around. She unwrapped it slowly, carefully, preserving the paper like she actually cared. When she opened the velvet box and saw the bracelet, there was a moment, just a flash, where something crossed her face. But not what I expected. Not tenderness or understanding or emotion. It was disappointing. Disdain. Disgust. She picked up the bracelet between two fingers like it might contaminate her. "What is this?" she asked. Her voice was loud enough that conversations around us stopped. People were turning to look. "It's a custom piece," I said quietly. My heart was already sinking. I knew this tone. I knew this look. "The coordinates are from our first home, where—" "Cheap," she interrupted. She wasn't even looking at me. She was looking at the bracelet, turning it over in her hand, examining it like a jeweler appraising something worthless. "This is cheap, Mom. Like, filthy trash." She laughed. Actually laughed. "Did you get this at a mall kiosk?" The table had gone completely silent. Everyone was staring. I felt my face burning, my chest tightening, my throat closing. "I had it custom made," I whispered. "The engraving. Custom?" She shook her head, still laughing, looking around at her friends like she was inviting them to join in the joke. "Custom garbage is still garbage." And then, with a flick of her wrist, she tossed it back at me. Threw it. Like trash. The box hit me in the cheek, bounced off, clattered onto the table. The bracelet fell out, skittered across the white tablecloth, stopped next to someone's wine glass. Her friends laughed. Not all of them, not loudly, but enough. Enough that I heard it. Enough that it echoed in my skull like a gunshot. Her husband smirked into his drink. Someone muttered something I couldn't hear, but that made the person next to them snicker. My daughter didn't apologize. Didn't look embarrassed. Didn't care. She just turned back to her other gifts, dismissing me entirely, already reaching for the next beautifully wrapped box. I sat there for maybe 10 seconds. Maybe less. Time felt strange, compressed and expanded all at once. I could hear my own heartbeat. I could feel every eye on me. I could taste humiliation in the back of my throat, bitter and thick. I could feel something inside me that had been bending for 28 years finally, completely, irrevocably snap. I stood up. I didn't say a word. I picked up my purse, left the bracelet on the table where it had fallen, and I walked out. My legs felt numb. My hands were shaking. Tears were burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of these people. Not in front of her. I made it to my car, got inside, locked the doors, and sat there in the parking garage with my hands gripping the steering wheel. And I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't fall apart. Instead, I pulled out my phone and I opened my banking app. I canceled every automatic payment I'd set up for her. Every single one. The mortgage payment, canceled. The boutique lease, canceled. Her car insurance, canceled. Her phone bill, canceled. The storage unit for her inventory, canceled. The business insurance, canceled. Everything. I went through my bank accounts, my credit cards, every recurring charge with her name on it, and I stopped them all. It took me maybe 15 minutes. 15 minutes to undo years of support. Click, click, click. Gone, gone, gone. Then I sent her a single text message, "From now on, you're on your own." I didn't wait for a response. I drove home, went inside, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat in the dark. And I still didn't cry. Because crying would have meant I regretted it. And I didn't. Not even a little. Not even when I thought about what would happen next. Not even when I imagined her panic, her anger, her realization that the free ride was over. I felt nothing but a cold, clear certainty that I had finally done what I should have done years ago. The first call came the next morning. Sunday morning, 7 a.m., my phone screaming on my nightstand. I ignored it. It rang again. And again. I turned it off. By the time I turned it back on that afternoon, I had 37 missed calls and 62 text messages. All from her. Ranging from confused to angry to panicked. "Mom, what did you do? Why did my mortgage payment bounce? The bank called me. They said you canceled the automatic transfer. This isn't funny. Call me back. Mom, seriously, I need you to fix this right now. You're being insane. Over a stupid birthday present? Grow up. My lease payment didn't go through. My landlord is furious. Do you have any idea what you're doing to me? You're ruining my life because you're petty and vindictive. I can't believe you're my mother." I didn't respond to any of them. I didn't call her back. I blocked her number for 3 days, just for peace, just so I could think without the constant buzzing of her rage and panic. On day 3, she showed up at my house. Pounded on my door at 9 p.m., hysterical, mascara running down her face. Her husband was in the car, engine running, staring at his phone. She screamed at me through the door that I was cruel, that I was heartless, that I was destroying everything she'd built. I didn't open the door. I just spoke through it, calm and quiet. "Everything you built was built on my money, with my credit, with my support. And you threw it in my face. Literally. So now you get to see what you can actually build on your own." "Mom, please," she sobbed. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry, okay? I was drunk. I was stressed. I didn't mean it." "Yes, you did," I said. You meant every word. And now you get to live with the consequences. She didn't leave for another hour. She cried, she begged, she threatened, she guilt-tripped. Her husband eventually came to the door and tried to reason with me, explaining that they were in a tight spot financially and just needed a little more time to get stable. I told him I'd been giving them time for 2 years, and now time was up. He got angry then, told me I was being unreasonable, that family doesn't abandon family over hurt feelings. I told him I wasn't abandoning anyone. I was just no longer funding their lifestyle. There's a difference. They finally left. I watched them drive away, arguing visibly in the car, and I felt nothing. No guilt. No regret. Just exhausted relief. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Within a week, her boutique's rent bounced and her landlord posted a pay or vacate notice on the door. She had 5 days to come up with 3 months of back rent, because apparently she hadn't been paying that either, just letting me cover it, or face eviction and legal action. She didn't have it. The boutique closed. All that inventory, all those dreams, all my $45,000 investment, gone. Her car payment defaulted the following week. She got a repossession notice. She managed to scrape together enough to make a payment and avoid losing the car, but it destroyed her credit. Her mortgage was a bigger problem. Without my half of the payment, they couldn't afford it. They tried, for exactly 1 month, to cover the full payment themselves. It wiped them out. The next month, they were late. The 3rd month, they missed it entirely. Their house went into pre-foreclosure proceedings within 4 months. They had to sell in a hurry, at a loss, just to avoid foreclosure on their credit reports. They moved into a small apartment across town. 2 bedrooms, builder-grade everything, no backyard. Her Instagram posts got noticeably less frequent. The professional photos of her perfect life dried up. But the really spectacular part? Her friends disappeared. Turns out when you can't afford to host the wine nights and the designer trunk shows and the birthday dinners at expensive restaurants, people stop showing up. When you're not doing well, when you're not successful and shiny and aspirational, you're not interesting anymore. The friends who laughed when she threw that bracelet at my face? Gone. The ones who commented heart emojis on every post? Silent. She went from having a dozen close girlfriends to having maybe 2 people who still returned her calls. And she blamed me for all of it. Every single bit of it. She posted online, not tagging me, but obviously about me, about how her mother had abandoned her in her time of need over a misunderstanding. How a family is supposed to be there for each other no matter what. How conditional love isn't real love. The post got a lot of sympathy at first, a lot of "I'm so sorry" comments and "you deserve better" messages. But then people started asking questions. Asking what happened. And she couldn't explain it without revealing how she'd treated me. She tried to frame it carefully, saying we'd had a disagreement at her birthday, but someone who'd been there, one of the friends who'd laughed, commented the truth. Said she'd been kind of harsh to me about a gift. Said maybe there were 2 sides to the story. The tide turned fast. People started questioning her version of events. Started asking why an entire family relationship would blow up over one disagreement unless there was more to it. Started pointing out that maybe if your mother withdraws all financial support, there's probably a reason. She deleted the post within 2 days. But screenshots live forever. I saw them, sent to me by my sister who was keeping tabs on the social media fallout. My family did take sides. My sister was firmly on my side, she'd watched me sacrifice for years, watched me give everything, and she'd been warning me that I was enabling entitlement. She'd seen this coming from a mile away. My mother, though? My mother was horrified. She called me crying, asking how I could do this to my own daughter. Asking if I understood what financial instability would do to her marriage, her mental health, her future. Telling me that my daughter was just emotional and that I was being too harsh. That families forgive. That mothers don't give up on their children. I told my mother that I hadn't given up on my child. I'd given up on being an ATM that got abused for trying to show love. There's a difference. My mother didn't speak to me for 2 months. That hurt more than I expected. But I stayed firm. Because I wasn't wrong. I knew I wasn't wrong. Every cell in my body, every rational thought in my mind, every ounce of self-respect I had left told me I'd done the right thing. A hard thing. A painful thing. But the right thing. Months passed. Summer turned to fall, turned to winter. I didn't reach out. She didn't reach out, not really. A few terse text messages about logistics, about the mortgage I was still legally tied to until they sold the house, about forwarding mail, about paperwork I needed to sign. Nothing personal. Nothing real. Just cold, administrative communication. I watched her life implode from a distance, through social media and through my sister who still talked to her occasionally. The boutique stayed closed. She got a regular job, something in retail management at a department store. Her husband was stressed, working longer hours, visibly strained in the few photos she posted. They looked tired. They looked older. They looked like people who'd had their safety net yanked away and were still learning how to stand without it. And I felt complicated. Not regret, exactly. Not guilt. But sadness. Deep, aching sadness that it had come to this. That the daughter I'd given everything to had valued me so little that she could treat me that way. That the relationship I'd poured my life into had been so one-sided that removing the financial component left nothing but silence. I focused on myself for the first time in decades. I invested in my business. I took a vacation, a real one, 10 days in Italy, just me and a good book and no one needing anything from me. I went to therapy, finally, and started unpacking all the ways I'd confused love with sacrifice. All the ways I'd taught my daughter that my value was in my wallet. All the ways I'd enabled her entitlement by never saying no, never setting boundaries, never making her stand on her own. It was brutal work. Facing the ways I'd contributed to this disaster. Accepting that I'd hurt her by helping her too much. Realizing that I'd robbed her of the opportunity to struggle and grow and learn self-sufficiency. That my endless giving had crippled her ability to value anything, including me. Winter deepened. The holidays came and went. We didn't exchange gifts. We didn't see each other. On Christmas Day, I got a text, "Merry Christmas, Mom." I responded the same. That was it. The sum total of our holiday connection. It broke my heart in a way that was different from the sharp pain of the birthday incident. This was a slow, grinding heartbreak. The kind that comes from watching something die slowly rather than explosively. Then, one night in late January, almost 8 months after her birthday, my phone rang at 11 p.m. Her name on the screen. I almost didn't answer. I'd learned to protect my peace, to not jump every time she reached out. But something made me pick up. "Mom?" Her voice was small. Quiet. Nothing like the sharp, entitled tone I'd gotten used to. "Yes? Can I come over? I know it's late. I need to talk to you." I should have said no. I should have told her we could meet for coffee in a few days, somewhere neutral, somewhere safe. But I heard something in her voice. Something broken and real. So I said yes. She showed up 20 minutes later, alone, looking like she hadn't slept in days. We sat in my living room, the same room where I'd sat in the dark 8 months ago and cancelled all those payments. She didn't sit on the couch. She sat on the floor, hugging her knees, looking younger than she had in years. "I've been thinking," she started. Stopped. Started again. I've been thinking about everything. About that night. About everything before that night. About my whole life, really. I didn't say anything. I just waited. I was horrible to you, she whispered. On my birthday. And before that. For years before that. I treated you like you owed me everything. Like your money was my money. Like your purpose was to fund my life. And I didn't even see it. I thought I was entitled to it. I thought that's just what parents did. Her voice cracked. Tears started sliding down her face. When you cut me off, I was so angry. I thought you were being vindictive. Punishing me. Being cruel. But these last few months. She laughed bitterly. These months have been hell, Mom. Real, actual hell. We almost lost everything. We did lose most of it. And I had to figure out how to survive without you bailing me out. Without your money fixing everything. She looked up at me then, and her eyes were so full of pain and shame that I had to look away. I finally understand, she said. I understand what you did for me. All of it. The jobs you worked, the business you built, the sacrifices you made. I understand what it cost you. And I understand why you stopped. I understand that I didn't just take your money. I took your respect. Your dignity. Your love. And I threw it back in your face. I felt my own tears coming then, hot and fast. I'd held them back for 8 months. Through the betrayal, through the fallout, through the silence. I'd stayed strong. But hearing her finally understand? That broke me. I'm not asking you to forgive me, she continued. I don't deserve that. I'm not asking for anything, actually. I just needed you to know that I finally got it. I get what you were trying to teach me. That I needed to stand on my own. That I needed to appreciate what I had instead of demanding more. That love isn't a blank check. That family isn't an ATM. She wiped her face with her sleeve, like a little kid. I got a job, she said. A real job. It's not glamorous. I'm a manager at a department store. I work 45 hours a week. My feet hurt. I'm exhausted all the time. But I'm doing it myself. We're paying our bills. We're living within our means. We're okay. We're going to be okay. I couldn't speak. My throat was too tight, my chest too full of contradicting emotions. And Mom? She looked at me again. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. For all of it. For taking you for granted. For treating you like garbage. For that bracelet. God, that bracelet. She started crying harder. I kept it. I've been wearing it every day since we moved. The coordinates, the date. I finally looked up what they meant. I finally understood what you were trying to give me. And I threw it at your face. She was sobbing now, full body sobs that shook her shoulders. And I couldn't hold back anymore. I got down on the floor with her and I pulled her into my arms and we both cried. We cried for the years of dysfunction. We cried for the broken relationship. We cried during the painful lesson. We cried for the time we'd lost. We cried because healing hurts almost as much as breaking. I didn't do it to punish you, I finally said, my voice rough with tears. I did it to remind you who built the foundation you spat on. I did it because you needed to know what things cost. What life costs. What love costs. I did it because I was teaching you a lesson I should have taught you years ago. I know, she whispered into my shoulder. I know that now. I hate that I had to learn it this way. I hate what I did to you. but I finally understand. We sat there for a long time, holding each other on the floor of my living room. It wasn't a happy reunion. It wasn't a fairy tale reconciliation where everything was instantly fixed. The damage was too deep, the hurt too real. But it was a beginning. A tiny, fragile beginning of something that might someday look like a healthy relationship. She left around 2 in the morning. We didn't make plans. We didn't promise to talk soon or have dinner or pretend everything was fine. We just hugged at the door, held each other for a long moment, and let go. In the weeks that followed, we started texting occasionally. Nothing heavy. Just small check-ins. How was work? How was the weather? Small, careful steps toward rebuilding something from the rubble. She invited me to coffee one Saturday. We met at a chain cafe, nothing fancy, and we talked for 2 hours. About her job, about her marriage, about the lessons she was learning about money and value and entitlement. She told me she'd started going to therapy too. That she was working through her relationship with money and with me. That she was realizing how much her father's death had shaped her fear of loss, and how she'd translated that fear into greed, holding tight to everything, demanding security through material things, confusing money with love because money felt more reliable. It was hard to hear. Hard to understand that my endless giving had fed into her trauma response instead of healing it. That I'd been enabling her wounds instead of helping her heal them. But it made sense. Painful, complicated sense. We're still rebuilding. It's slow. It's hard. Some days are better than others. Some days I look at her and I still feel that flash of pain from her birthday, still feel that box hitting my face, still hear that laughter. Some days she pulls away, still ashamed, still guilty, still learning how to be in a relationship with me without the financial component. But we're trying. We're both trying. And that's something. I'm telling you this story not because it has a neat, happy ending. It doesn't. I'm telling you this because I know there are other parents out there who are drowning in the same dynamic. Who are giving and giving and giving until there's nothing left. Who are being taken for granted, disrespected, treated like an ATM. Who feel guilty for even thinking about stopping. Who's confused sacrifice with love for so long that they don't know where one ends and the other begins. Family doesn't mean endless funding. Love isn't a blank check. Supporting your children doesn't mean crippling them with dependence. Sometimes, most times, the most loving thing you can do is let them fall. Let them struggle. Let them figure it out on their own. Let them learn what things actually cost, what life actually requires, what they're actually capable of when they don't have a safety net. And that's brutal. That goes against every instinct you have as a parent. From the moment they're born, your entire purpose is to protect them, to shield them, to catch them before they fall. You spend their whole childhood keeping them safe, and then suddenly you're supposed to step back and watch them stumble? Watch them fail. Watch them hurt. It feels wrong. It feels cruel. It feels like you're abandoning them. But you're not. You're releasing them. There's a difference. I didn't abandon my daughter. I stopped enabling her. I stopped allowing her to treat me like I was disposable while simultaneously being her financial lifeline. I stopped teaching her that she could take and take and take without consequence. I stopped robbing her of the dignity that comes from standing on your own 2 feet. And it almost destroyed our relationship. It still might, honestly. We're not fixed. We're not healed. We're just trying. Some days I wonder if it was worth it. If I should have just kept quiet, kept paying, kept sacrificing to preserve the peace. If maintaining the relationship at any cost would have been better than this painful, uncertain rebuilding. But then I remember her face at that birthday dinner. The casual cruelty. The thoughtless dismissal. The complete lack of respect. And I know that wasn't a relationship worth preserving. That was a transaction. That was me being used. That was toxic, dysfunctional, unhealthy for both of us. I remember the years of working 2 jobs, of bleeding myself dry, of refinancing my house and emptying my retirement and sacrificing every dream I had for myself. And I remember that through all of that, I told myself it was love. I told myself that's what mothers do. I told myself she knew, she understood, she appreciated it even if she didn't say it. But she didn't. She had no idea. She thought it was normal. She thought it was her right. She thought I existed to fund her lifestyle. And I taught her that. Every time I paid for something she should have handled herself, every time I bailed her out of a problem she created, every time I said yes when I should have said no, I taught her that I had no value beyond my wallet. That's the part that still keeps me up at night. Not what she did to me, but what I did to her by doing too much for her. I crippled my own daughter with generosity. I disabled her with love. I made her weak and entitled and ungrateful by never letting her struggle, never letting her fail, never letting her stand on her own. I did that. Me. With the best intentions in the world, with a heart full of love, with every good motive a parent can have, I did that to her. And that's the hardest part of this whole nightmare. Accepting my role in creating the person who threw a bracelet at my face. Understanding that my endless giving wasn't actually love, it was fear. Fear of her pain, fear of her struggle, fear of being a bad mother, fear of her not loving me. So I gave and gave and gave, trying to earn love, trying to prevent pain, trying to be enough. But it was never enough. It could never be enough. Because love that you have to buy isn't real love. Security that comes from someone else's wallet isn't real security. And a relationship built on financial dependence isn't a real relationship. So when I cut her off, I wasn't just teaching her a lesson. I was freeing both of us. Freeing her from dependence and entitlement. Freeing myself from being used and disrespected. Freeing our relationship from the toxic dynamic that was killing it slowly. Did I handle it perfectly? No. Maybe I should have had a conversation first, set boundaries gradually, weaned her off instead of going cold turkey. Maybe I should have been less emotional, more strategic, more planned. But I was hurt. I was devastated. I was broken. And in that moment, sitting in my car in that parking garage with the sting of humiliation still burning on my face, I made the best decision I could make with the emotional capacity I had available. And I don't regret it. Even now, even with all the pain and fallout and broken pieces scattered everywhere, I don't regret it. Because the alternative was continuing to be disrespected, continuing to be taken for granted, continuing to fund a lifestyle I couldn't afford while my own future crumbled. The alternative was teaching her that love means tolerating abuse. That family means accepting mistreatment. That mothers exist to be used. I couldn't do that anymore. I wouldn't. Even if it meant losing her forever, and for months, I thought I couldn't keep participating in my own disrespect. People ask me if I'm angry with her. If I hate her. If I'll ever really forgive her. And the truth is complicated. I'm not angry anymore. Anger burned out months ago, leaving behind just this deep, sad understanding. I don't hate her. I never hated her. Even at my most hurt, most betrayed, most devastated, I loved her. I've always loved her. That was never the question. The question was whether I loved myself enough to stop accepting unacceptable treatment. Whether I valued myself enough to set boundaries. Whether I had enough self-respect left to say enough. And finally, after 56 years of putting everyone else first, after 28 years of sacrificing everything for my daughter, I did. I had just enough self-respect left to walk away. As for forgiveness? I'm working on it. True forgiveness is a process, not a moment. It's not something you decide to do once and then it's done. It's something you choose every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. Some days I wake up and I've forgiven her completely. Some days I remember that birthday dinner and I feel that old hurt all over again, fresh and sharp. But I'm trying. We're both trying. And maybe that's all healing really is, just trying, day after day, to do better than yesterday. I think about that bracelet a lot. The one she wears every day now, she tells me. The coordinates of our first home. The date of her father's death. The physical representation of everything we've been through, everything we've survived, everything we've lost. She threw it at my face in contempt. Now she wears it in remembrance. There's something poetic about that. Something symbolic about how we have to lose things before we understand their value. She didn't value me when she had unlimited access to my resources. She didn't appreciate me when I was always there, always helping, always fixing. She couldn't see my worth when I was wrapped up in her life like a safety net she never thought about because she'd never hit the ground. But when I removed myself? When I let her fall? When she had to catch herself for the first time in her adult life? That's when she finally saw me. Not as a bank account. Not as a problem solver. Not as a resource to be exploited. But as a person. A human being who'd been sacrificing and struggling and hurting. A mother who'd given everything and received contempt in return. And that's what I want other parents to understand. Your children will not appreciate you while you're cushioning every fall. They will not value you while you're solving every problem. They will not respect you while you're funding every whim. They can't. Because they don't know what life costs without you. They don't know what struggle feels like. They don't know their own strength. You have to let them find out. Even though it's terrifying. Even though every instinct screams at you to help, to fix, to save. Even though watching them struggle feels like your own failure. Even though their pain hurts you more than your own. You have to let go. I'm not saying cut them off completely. I'm not saying be cruel or vindictive or withhold love. I'm saying stop confusing financial support with emotional support. Stop thinking that paying for things equals caring. Stop measuring your worth as a parent by how much you can give materially. Because your real value isn't in your wallet. It's in your wisdom, your experience, your presence, your love. And none of those things cost money. None of those things require you to empty your savings account or refinance your house or sacrifice your future. Teach your children to stand. Even if it means watching them fall first. Teach them that love is about respect, not transactions. Teach them that family doesn't mean unlimited resources. Teach them young, before they're adults with mortgages and businesses and entitlement so deep it takes a crisis to crack it. I taught my daughter too late. I waited until she was 28, until the patterns were so ingrained that breaking them nearly broke us both. I should have taught her at 18. Or 15. Or 10. I should have let her struggle earlier, when the stakes were lower, when failure wouldn't cost her a house and a business and her entire lifestyle. But I didn't. I was too afraid. Too guilty. Too caught up in the idea that good mothers sacrifice everything. That love means giving until you have nothing left. That my worth was measured by how much I could provide. And I was wrong. So completely, devastatingly wrong. Good mothers teach their children to fly. They don't just catch them every time they fall. They let them scrape their knees, make mistakes, and face consequences. They provide guidance, not funding. Wisdom, not wealth. Presence, not presents. I know that now. I wish I'd known it sooner. I wish I'd had the strength to set boundaries when she was younger. I wish I'd valued myself enough to not lose myself in her needs. I wish I'd understood that enabling isn't love, it's fear dressed up as devotion. But I know it now. And so does she. And maybe that's the silver lining in this whole painful disaster. Maybe we both needed to be broken down to be rebuilt into something healthier. Maybe this was the only way we could learn what we needed to learn. I'll never forget her 28th birthday. That moment is seared into my memory forever. The sound of that box hitting my face. The laughter of her friends. The look of casual dismissal in her eyes. The way my heart shattered into pieces I wasn't sure I could put back together. But I'll also never forget that night in January when she showed up at my door, broken and humble and finally understanding. When she looked at me with real remorse and real growth and real appreciation. When she hugged me like she finally knew what she'd almost lost. Both moments are part of our story now. The breaking and the beginning of healing. The betrayal and the redemption. The fall and the slow, painful climb back up. This isn't a fairy tale. There's no perfect ending where everything goes back to how it was. We can't go back. That relationship, the one where I gave everything and she took everything, is dead. It had to die. It was killing both of us. But something new is growing in its place. Something more honest. More equal. More real. It's fragile and uncertain and nowhere near fully formed. But it's based on mutual respect instead of financial dependence. It's built on boundaries instead of boundless giving. It's rooted in truth instead of dysfunction. And maybe that's worth all the pain. Maybe that's worth the 8 months of silence and the house she lost and the business that failed and the friends who disappeared. Maybe destruction had to come before reconstruction. I hope so. God, I hope so. Because the cost has been enormous. For both of us. But I'm still standing. That's what I want you to know. If you're in this situation, if you're being taken for granted and disrespected and financially drained by your own child, you can survive setting boundaries. You can survive saying no. You can survive stepping back and letting them figure it out. It will hurt. It will hurt like nothing else you've ever experienced. It will feel like you're betraying everything you believe about family and love and motherhood. You'll question yourself 1,000 times. You'll wonder if you're cruel, if you're wrong, if you're destroying your relationship forever. But you're not. You're saving it. You're saving yourself. You're teaching them what they need to know to survive in a world that won't endlessly fund them and bail them out. You're giving them the gift of self-sufficiency, even though they'll hate you for it at first. And maybe, if you're lucky like I was, they'll eventually understand. They'll grow. They'll change. They'll come back to you with humility and gratitude and real, earned appreciation. Or maybe they won't. Maybe they'll stay angry forever. Maybe they'll never speak to you again. Maybe the relationship will be permanently destroyed. And you still have to do it. Because you can't save someone by drowning yourself. You can't help them by hurting yourself. You can't teach them to stand by carrying them forever. Family doesn't mean endless funding. Love isn't a blank check. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is let go and let them fall so they can learn to catch themselves. I'm Valerie Hayes. I'm 56 years old. On my daughter's 28th birthday, she threw my love back in my face. So I taught her what that love was worth by taking it away. And it broke us both. And it might have saved us both. If you've ever had to teach someone you love a hard lesson, if you've ever had to choose between being liked and being respected, if you've ever had to let someone fall so they could learn to stand, you're not alone. You're not cruel. You're not wrong. You're just finally loving yourself enough to stop accepting the unacceptable. And that's not abandonment. That's survival. That's strength. That's the hardest kind of love there is. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more real stories like this one and click on the image showing on your screen to watch another real story. Trust me, it's more crazier and heartwarming than you can ever imagine. See you in the next story.